I don't quite know what to say because Aaron went over this earlier today, and my experiences are very different than Aaron's, but no less valid. And they're also very different from than our the person we're talking about today. Well, we're not actually talking about her. We're talking about assumptions that people make about Catholics, about religions. When people who don't know what they're talking about start trying to make comparisons between religions. That's really what we're talking about today. Hey, Grace Peter. I'm Suzanne Tickemeyer. If you don't know who I am, I used to write for Pathos for 10 years, a column called No Longer Quivering. I wrote about evangelical, quiverful religion. These are just my opinions. Don't bully anybody that I'm going to talk about. Don't even be rude to them, even the slightest. Just ignore them. Okay, so today, I flew back yesterday from the United States. I had a week there that was not so pleasant trying to deal with a relative that had some issues that never did get resolved. And we just kind of left everything in a stalemate. I have frustrated aunts. I can't do anything. I just basically threw my hands up and came on back home. So here I am. So this morning, everybody is pointing me to a certain creator using part of my story again, mixing it up with Jinger Duggar's and somehow trying to make that some cohesive narrative. I couldn't even understand it when I went in and looked. And I thought about issuing a strike because she did use a lot of my own story there. But that's kind of not something I'm going to do. She has been using people's stories for years, including mine. What I wanted to talk about today, and I wish to God I had Angela, proud to be a Catholic, on here because she could answer some of these better than I can. I was raised in the 1960s and the 1970s, South Louisiana. I attended Catholic school, I attended Episcopal school, I attended public school. I attended all three. My father was Episcopalian, my mother was Catholic. My father promised the church and he would raise me Catholic. I was not raised Catholic. I was raised, I always say Heinz 57 because, hey, Amanda, Catholic with my mom and the Monsod family, Episcopalian when I went to church on Sundays with my father. And we used to go to Mass in Catholic school. I still have aunts that go to daily Mass. Daily Mass. Somebody acted like was freaky if you even went once a week. Well, if you're Catholic, it's not. You can go daily. Oh, thank you, Maritza. So someone has made a lot of things about the Catholics. She said that the Catholics, fourth fastest growing religion. Ted, I know it is. Making it up as you go along, Heinz 57. My father used to take me to Episcopal church on Sundays, and I enjoyed it as a kid even. The Catholic church I used to go to during school, when my aunts were around, different times we'd go to the Catholic church. It was not an every week thing for me, except for when I was in Catholic school with nuns. And here's the thing. I'm old. I'm going to throw this out. When I was in school, everybody, every teacher, every principal had a ruler or a paddle. It was not an unusual thing. It didn't matter if it was Episcopalian school. It didn't matter if it was Catholic school. It didn't matter if it was public school. Everybody had the stupid paddle, and they weren't afraid to use it. Now, I never got paddled at all because I was something of a suck up teacher's pet when I was a kid. I loved reading. I loved learning. And I did well every year in school, except one year, about a half a year, I had a teacher that was just horrendous. That, let's see, was that third or fourth grade? It must have been fourth grade. First half of fourth grade, I had a really awful teacher. It was just a mean person who made me cry every single day. But that was public school. But that's the thing. Back in those days, corporal punishment was a normal part of schooling. It was a normal part of many households. I was lucky. My parents didn't spank. My mother would have had to care more to spank and pay more attention. My father tried to spank me a handful of times, and I was not receptive. I was one of those kids that was like, that didn't hurt. And every time it hit me harder, I was just more stubborn. And I could keep that up for one long time. And so all this talk that all Catholic churches, all Catholics are toxic. Hey, Susie. Hey, Amanda. You go to daily mass yourself? Saying that is 100%. Oh no, that's stinky. Um, saying that all Catholics are that way is wrong. But like I said, what she's talking about, common in the 60s and 70s. Now, beyond that, I don't know. I don't know if it was common in the 80s or not. I have no knowledge of that. But knowing that it was common in the 70s, I'm pretty sure that it must have been common later. I just got back from Louisiana with my aunts and their daily mass going. And one of them made me laugh because she started talking about how communists joined the Catholic Church to destroy it from the inside as priests and nuns. And she was trying to claim that all of the people who have ever beat kids or done SA to them through the church were all Communist Party members who were trying to take down the church, and they were taking down the church by trying to make the church seem like it was involved with SA of children. I don't think so. I think, the church, and it's not just the Catholics have had this problem. There are a lot of churches that have had problems. It's come out that various members and various members of clergy have SA children. It's unfortunately a reality for what has happened in the past. There are a lot of people, when given a lot of power, given a lot of power, will abuse that power. Not everybody, but there have been enough of them. I think where the Catholic Church fell down and what they were doing about the SA was they would take the priests, counsel them, and move them somewhere else. I don't think that was possibly the best way to handle that, because all it did was give them a whole new, fresh victim pool. But I doubt that they were communists joining the church specifically to give it a big black eye. I don't think that at all. But again, I don't think she's anybody that could ever admit there is anything wrong in Catholicism. It's an abuse of power, and abusive people seek service work out to take advantage of the vulnerable. Susie, that's exactly right. That's what I have noticed. All you have to do is look at the IFB, troubled teen homes. The same things happen there. So many religions where you have this kind of power structures, you're going to have these things happen. It's just a reality. People that want that power are drawn to those things. And that's what happened. They hid and rerouted the priests, unfortunately. Exactly. You can look at it, it's just a religious thing, even in healthcare. Sissy, I don't know about in healthcare. I don't know. I'm not familiar with abuse rates in healthcare, so I really can't speak to that. I haven't looked at that. How many doctors and nurses hurt patients? They do. There are a fair amount of them that do. I used to work for one of them that was kind of a jackass, and he got in trouble for writing multiple prescriptions for OxyContin. It got so bad when I was working there that the other doctors came to me and said, hey, look, if Dr. So-and-so, somebody calls requesting Dr. So-and-so, and they are a pain patient, I want you to get complete records, go through their records, flag anything suspicious, and bring it to one of us. They should have pressed charges like they do now. Absolutely, they should have pressed charges. Absolutely. People who do those evil things should not be any part of the Catholic Church, the Independent Fundamentalist Baptist Church, or any other church. But sadly, they have exploited the loopholes of things. I hardly think that it is the kind of trafficking that this person keeps talking about. She speaks as if guilt, condemnation and abuse was part of the Catholic walk, or the Catholic being raised a child of Catholicism. I can tell you that wasn't my experience at all. I'm not saying it can't happen because obviously it has happened. I am saying that she's looking at this through a lens of abuse because this is what she looks for. So here she is. Jinger Duggar Vuolo is getting ready to release her book. And the book is about her going from Bill Gothard and the IBLP to John MacArthur. Now, it's about finally becoming free. Here's the thing, there's no freedom there as far as I can see. She's just trading a cast iron skillet or one of those fancy ceramic skillets. They're both skillets. There's going to be some abuse with both of them. Schools, sports, scouts, etc. Exactly. They look for people to take advantage of in these groups because there's certainly been problems with scouts. There's been problems with any organization that has to do with children. Evil people will take part in that. My friend Bruce Garenzer and I have spoke about this, and he was telling me tales of his IFB years with the bus drivers that would drive the routes to pick up the kids. Some of the helpers on the buses apparently were involved in SA of the children. So one thing, one of the things that I got set in place at my old church, one of the few things I did that I'm actually proud of is I twisted the arm of the pastor to make sure that anyone that worked with youth was fingerprinted, background checked, the whole 9 yards, and that there was insurance in place to cover those things in case there started being claims. So instead of just saying, "Hey, I want to work with children," you had to be trained and background checked before you could do it. And you had to be a member in good standing of way more than 6 months before they would let you do this, which I thought was a real first step towards ending this in churches. Because we really don't want the kids getting things happening to them at a young age at the hands of someone who is an authority over them. Ginger is jumping from one frying pan to another. John MacArthur is almost as bad as Bill Gothard. Exactly. He is. My old church, we had people that followed both and or either one. My pastor was going to the Masters Seminary to get his PhD. And occasionally he would be floating ideas that he got off of John MacArthur. I heard enough of John MacArthur's theology in those days to say it was not anything I really ever wanted part of. Not at all. So I feel bad for Ginger. She is on a journey, and this is just kind of a way station. I hope that she wakes up one day and realizes how abusive even that is and gets even more freedom. I keep telling people again and again and again, and I said it in my book, if you are going to go into deconversion over any of these kinds of fundamentalist evangelical type religions, non-denominational churches, your best bet is to go to the church you were raised in as a child, particularly if they have a regional, state, national oversight and they have clearly spelled out theologies. That's your best bet. That's the Catholic Church, the Episcopal Church, the Methodist Church, the Lutherans, any number of churches. Jeremy is too far into the Kool-Aid to wake up with her. No, he won't wake up with her. It will be the splitting of the marriage if she wakes up. One more stop on the deconversion train for Ginger. It could well be. Now, our friend was saying all this about how the Catholics are abusive and was naming a bunch of things that aren't actually abusive is a thing. She was making claims of being chewed out and this and that happening to her. And she was going to public school because one of her complaints was one of the most ridiculous ones. She was complaining she was given no sex education whatsoever through the church. They just said, don't do it. Well, at least she got that. You know what I got at the Catholic Church? The nuns would tell us to practice the aspirin method of birth control. Put an aspirin between your knees and clamp it there the whole time you're on a date to prevent from getting pregnant. Fortunately for me, I had enough time in public school where I knew where babies came from a very early age. And I knew that it was that. I knew yeah, that was a bunch of malarkey. The transformed wife won't shut up about Ginger. She wrote 2 posts on Facebook yesterday and then deleted them. She wrote another one today. Brian, I saw that. I laughed so hard. The transformed wife is a whole ball of crazy wax. I'm just going to say that right there. I have had head knockings with her. I used to write about her on a regular basis with Pathos, and I stopped for 2 reasons. One, her her brain tumor came back. She's got a brain. She's had a brain tumor. Um, the second one was her husband started coming after me and threatening me, and he came after my husband and said, "Control your woman, control your wife, control your wife." And my husband comes to me and went, "Hey, yeah, some weirdo is rambling about how I need to control you. You want to go answer him?" Because he was sick as a dog that night. He was throwing up. And he wasn't about to get into a theological discussion with Ken Alexander at all. So, yeah, you're right. The transfer wife is triggered AF. I agree. She really is. And it's kind of funny to watch because she, like this other person we're talking about, can take zero pushback whatsoever, even though so much of what she says is some of the most entitled thinking I've ever seen in Christianity. I've been moving some of my old posts from Pathos over to my website now, and one of the ones I stumbled across that just made me laugh was one I wrote when she remodeled her kitchen, and I remodeled my kitchen around the same time for preparation for renting our house to move here. Our Lady, the Holy Diaphragm. Yeah, she pokes holes in it. She poked holes in it because Ken told her she could not stop working until she had baby number 2. So what does she do? Poke a hole in her diaphragm. That's real godly, isn't it? And she talks about it in her book. I mean, that was the thing that kills me about it. And you just don't brag about those things. You also don't brag about verbally tongue lashing your husband on your wedding day because he dared to eat squeezy cheese. Let me see who this is that keeps trying to. Oh, I am not answering. Not answering. Somebody I really don't want to talk to. So there we go. I've had more people. I got to give an apology. I haven't answered messages. I haven't answered calls. I haven't answered anything because I have just been in this awful place of annoyance and tension and everything else. After my aunts started calling me all the time about my mother. I've been in a bad place emotionally, and so I have got a lot of stuff I've got to catch up on now, and that's one of them. Our Lady of the Holy Diaphragm. Yep, she was the one. She was the one. Let me see if she gave me any kind of message. What did she want? Missed a call. Yeah, I see I missed a call. Let me tell her. Yeah, trying to find my husband. He's supposed to be taking somebody to meet somebody else. Mandy, you know what I finally did? I finally just threw my hands up because there's nothing that any of us can do. And I said, call me when she ends up in the hospital or she has an accident, because nothing short of that is going to change. I have to talk one day about how do you handle when you have a family member that is involved with alcohol and or drugs, and how do you handle that when you can see they're going the wrong way and they're not listening to anybody and they're just going off doing their stupid thing? So Lori makes me laugh because she lives one of the most entitled lives you could ever hope to live, yet she thinks she can tell everybody else how to live. I am sorry, but for most people, $17 a pound butter is beyond their budget. And so many of the things she does are just very, very, very beyond the scope of what normal people do at all. And she doesn't have a clue. I just don't get it. I don't get it. But that's just me. So, Lori, interestingly enough, is not really a fan of John MacArthur or the IBLP. Lori is making it up as she goes along. And my understanding is they have church hopped from church to church to church. So I don't know who listens to her. Most of her positions aren't even biblically supported, as far as I'm concerned. If you read your Bible, a lot of them just aren't. She takes things way out of context. So now we have poor Ginger, who's trying to slightly deconvert and has apparently struggled with that slight deconversion. I'm curious to read the book. I pre-ordered it as well. I'm going to get a copy and go from there. But please know that the things this person is saying about Catholicism are so completely, totally, utterly wrong. I've never seen the kind of patriarchy behavior and gender roles that take place in the IBLP, in non-denominational, quiverful churches, and John MacArthur. I've never seen it acted out like that in the Catholic Church ever. That's not to say that women can ever be priests, but the gender roles is not as strong. Abuse is not necessarily 100% given. Oh, yeah, Hermes' mom. Abuse is not 100% a given. It just depends. A lot of it depends upon what priest you get. Back in the 1970s, the mid 70s, my friends and I, we knew a priest we could smoke the weed with, and we smoked the devil's lettuce. A pretty cool priest. So a lot of it depends upon the priest running the joint as to what they are doing, whether there's going to be abuse of children, whether there's going to be anything that's squishy at all. It really depends extremely on the priest itself. My family is Catholic. Women wore what they wanted and worked, went to college, those that could afford to. Exactly, Susie. They do not interfere with your life on the same level that these non-denominational churches like IBLP, like John MacArthur do, where they order you to do certain things or you're just going to hell according to them, hell in a handbasket. Which is funny because some of the things that Jesus said and did completely contradict all the extra Bible stuff that they pour onto people. It just blows my mind. Blows my mind. I used to go to church in jeans sometimes, and nobody batted an eyelash. I always thought that was pretty cool. But the way that it's being carried on about as though it is a equal to the IBLP. The Catholic Church has its problems, sure enough, but they've done a lot of good through the years too. They are the ones that have staffed the schools, they have run hospitals, all sorts of different things. And to say that they are awful all the time is just somebody doesn't understand their Catholic history. They don't understand that the Catholics helped settle America, that save for the Catholics, there wouldn't have been law and order in some places, even, I would say. Catholicism is nowhere near the IBLP. No, it's not. Not at all. Not at all. And I have to say, I'm a great admirer of certain popes. Certain popes were just very wise guys. And I don't get the kind of shade that is thrown at them as if they were the same thing as the IBLP and Bill Grabby Hands Gothard. I don't get it. I don't get it. Now, Erin brought up some very good points on her live stream earlier. So I'm not going to belabor those same ones, but I thought it was fascinating that she had a completely different experience of Catholicism than I did. And we both had a completely different experience than what a certain person was describing. We all had different things happen. For me, it was a wonderful experience. I was ahead of my class as a kid. I was one of those hideous bookworms. I was a nerdish kind. And the nuns really encouraged that. I didn't get that same kind of one-on-one at my public school, but I got a good foundation from where I started from. Okay, you guys, I think that's it. I'm running out of steam and voice. Like I said, I just talked so much this last week with so many different people trying to figure out what was best for my mother, and we never did come up with anything. So I flew down there and flew back for no good reason. The only thing I can say is good is I bought a ton of yarn. I've been keeping sane by making washcloths, spa cloths, and planning my next quilt. That's the other thing. So that's what I ended up doing. This always makes me feel better. Always. If I'm feeling anxious, whatever, I just start crocheting and all of that melts away. Um, well, thank you, Amanda. Thank you very much. Just try not to just tell everybody, don't freak out. This is one of those things in life that happens. And she's trying to be relevant, this other creator, and she's using this release of Ginger's book as a way to be relevant, and she's trying to link her experience of Catholicism, which doesn't even sound like it was every time the door is open, you're there, Catholicism, that my family did. So that's what it's all about. She's just trying to be relevant. We're just going to ignore her and move on. But I had to say something in defense of Catholicism after all of that, because it isn't at all what she said. Okay, you guys, have a great evening. I'll see you the next day or two. I have to do a review of the Prince Harry book, Spare. I read it. So many things to talk about. It's ridiculous. That's all I can say. So I'm going to do a book review in a few days on that. Love you guys. Have a great day.